Hello and welcome to the Carbon Copy podcast Running Out of Time special. I'm Isabel Sparrow, and in this episode we're catching up with the climate relay as it makes its way through London for the first time this year. The baton will be leaving the capital again later today and heading west before eventually returning for the finale in Westminster on polling day on the 4th of July. Producer Brad and I joined the relay crew and Running Out of Time co-founder Dan as the baton left St Andrew's Youth Club in Westminster and followed the runners over the Thames and along past the London Eye to the Southbank Centre. After getting slightly lost and ending up on the wrong roof terrace, we eventually found our way up some yellow steps to a crowded bar area filled with plants and flowers. Dan and the others led us through a beautiful tunnel thick with climbing plants and through a slightly secret-looking door, and we found ourselves on a hidden rooftop with lots of excited-looking GoodGymmers and a very animated-looking gardener called Paul. First, we spoke to GoodGym founder Ivo Gormley to hear how the day had gone so far.
I'm here with Ivo from GoodGym. I know that we've already spoken to you, but now we're actually here in London witnessing a GoodGym task happening.
Yeah, it's amazing. We've just run 2k over from St Andrew's Youth Centre, and before that came down 8.5 kilometres from Parliament Hill track. It's been just a wonderful group of people. Amazing to have vegan runners here, loads of GoodGym runners, and we've also had people from the relay. So it's just been incredibly positive. And right now we're just learning a lot about the amazing different range of medicinal plants that they're growing on the Southbank roof. We're here with Grounded Ecotherapy, who have planted this extraordinary garden that GoodGym have helped with over the last 10 years, I think now.
Wow.
We've been back and forth helping with laying grass, helping to lay paths, and now all around us there's this amazing greenery on this massive concrete brutalist building, and it's quite sort of out of place, but once you're in it and surrounded by the green, it's just the most lovely place to be.
It is actually amazing. Obviously I'm going to describe this because people won't be able to see it. So we're in, if anyone knows what the Southbank Centre looks like, it's like a huge concrete block, and we've sort of wound our way towards the back of it to a bit that is a little bit secret. It doesn't look like somewhere that you're supposed to go, and there's all of this greenery that's just winding its way round the balustrades and spreading itself across the concrete, and it looks like nature is taking the building back, and it's absolutely amazing. And a big group of people now listening to a talk about how these plants are good for health. What a cool event.
Yeah, really lovely. So I think everyone's just getting briefed now to what task we're going to do. We have been told to plant these Pogonia plants, I think they're called, which is has this essential oil that apparently is the base of like most perfumes. But anyway, we're going to do a load of planting, and then there's apparently 2 big trees that also need planting. So alongside some of the smaller plants, there's huge trees being planted on this site.
Very cool.
So it feels like a really amazing way to bring all these things together. We're planting trees in the middle of the city. We're trying to raise awareness of things that you can practically do to help the environment in cities. Making sure that we protect and grow urban green space is just so important. And what we're saying is you can do that as part of your run. You can do your exercise, you can get there by running, and then you can plant a tree, which is incredibly good for your for the place that you're in, but also good for your health as well.
We then had a chat with Emma Nutland, Arts and Wellbeing Manager at the Southbank Centre.
I'm Emma Nutland, and I am the Arts and Wellbeing Manager here at the Southbank Centre, which, for those who don't know, it's the UK's largest art centre. It's made up of lots of different sites like the Hayward Gallery, the Royal Festival Hall, Queen Elizabeth Hall, and our whole site was built back in 1951 as part of the Festival of Britain, which was an incentive by the Labour government when we were coming out of post-war Britain, and this was a whole celebration of well-being and science and innovation and connection and community. And we're 75 years on from then, and so part of my job is connecting to communities and being very much led and influenced by communities about what they need, what's important to them. And one of my favourite projects here is working with Paul Pulford, who's the head gardener here, who runs Grounded Ecotherapy. And we're up on the roof garden here, which is like number one most hidden garden in London, and it's like been voted many times as like a great date venue by Time Out. I'd really recommend visiting if you haven't been here. It's a little pocket of wilderness with 250 wildflowers. It's a very beautiful, hopeful, peaceful space that also comes alive with lots of amazing creative events as well. And Paul runs Grounded Ecotherapy, and I'm sure he'll tell you much more about that, but the whole premise is recovery for people and recovery for the planet. And if we get those two things working, then we're on to a winner.
And how did tonight's event with GoodGym come about? Are GoodGym coming here regularly? Is this something they do on a regular basis? Like, how did that connection happen?
Yeah, so GoodGym have been absolutely instrumental about 5, 6 occasions over the last 10 years in making magic happen on this garden that, like, we genuinely wouldn't have had a lawn up here if it wasn't for GoodGym. GoodGym has single-handedly helped us to bring about 20 tons of crushed concrete up here. We try and do everything. So I'm part of the creative engagement team here, which is, as you can imagine, like, it's a very, very important team, but with a budget that gets very stretched across lots of different projects. So whatever we can do to get the right people in the right place and mobilise and make things happen without spending £2,000 on a crane, for example. So GoodGym have allowed that to happen and brought such good vibes, such good people all together. And I worked with our volunteers here in a really really important, inclusive way. So we have a very special relationship with GoodGym that Grounded Ecotherapy brought together in the first place. I think GoodGym also support on other projects across London with Grounded as well. But I joined 6 weeks before the pandemic. So when we weren't allowed on the garden for 3 months during the pandemic. And when we came back up here, it was only certain things had survived. So you couldn't really move through this garden. There was the nature had just totally taken over this kind of brutalist concrete architecture that we're surrounded by. And GoodGym, again, without GoodGym, we wouldn't have reopened the garden.
It's such an incredible space, and we had already spotted Paul, who Emma mentioned, giving instructions to the GoodGymmers and ensuring everyone had a job to do. We managed to tear him away from the gardening for just a moment to find out more about his story and how he came to run this project at the Southbank Centre.
My name's Paul Pulford, and I created a project called Grounded Ecotherapy. We're a horticultural therapy project for people in recovery from drugs and alcohol. So predominantly heroin addicts, crack cocaine addicts, people with severe alcoholism, or all of them, which is called dual diagnosis. And I was all of them once upon a time, living on the streets as well. And then from coming off the streets, I started this project, Grounded Ecotherapy.
And how did you take yourself from that position that you were in when you were living on the streets to this? Like, where did the skills come from? Where did the motivation come from?
Can't even tell you, because it would take a lot longer than this, okay? But you ask anyone, how do you come off of heroin? How do you come off of alcohol? How do you come off of being a crack cocaine addict? That's a long story, but I did. And as a child, I was a gardener. I had to do gardening because my dad was disabled. He was in a wheelchair and he had polio and diabetes. He made me do the garden when I was 6 years old. So I had my own allotment when I was 10. I spent my childhood, I grew up on a council estate with a council house right next to the woods. I spent my childhood in the woods, bird nesting, building dams in the river, tree houses. And my time as a child in the woods was the most beautiful times. Roll on the rest of my life, okay? Then, as in coming off the streets and in recovery, I remembered what made me happy as a child, what I really liked to do. So I created Grounded. So the first hostel that I moved into, which is called Providence Row Housing Association in Hackney, I created a garden in the back garden. And that's how it started. Then I'd have fellow residents who were all drug addicts all come out and help me, and we built a garden. And that year we got Best Wildlife Garden in Bloom in Tower Hamlets. Roll on several years, the Eden Project heard about me. The Eden Project invited me, Grounded Ecotherapy, to come and work at Chelsea Flower Show, which they created with other gardening therapy projects from around the world, from around the country. They were so impressed by me and my group. They asked me the second year, which is 2010, would I design a garden at Chelsea and could I build it, grow the plants, and we did. And we got a silver medal, and that was the start. I was on benefits then, but I was on Gardener's World, BBC One, live news, heroin addicts build garden at Chelsea. And the most important thing of it, if you're talking about climate change, I was the first person to design and build and grow the plants, but the plants are all native species, so all native trees and native plants, which is what this garden's about, because that's what we need to be planting. That's what's going to save the bees and the butterflies and the ecosystem and so on. Not trees from the Himalayas, not plants from North Africa, but our own endemic species. And from that Chelsea Flower Show, that's how I got this job. As Emma explained earlier, they wanted to build a garden here in 1951, didn't have the money. They approached the Eden Project to build a garden, and then the Eden Project knew that I could do it because I'd previously built a garden at the Chelsea Flower Show. So myself, we got the project, and it was only meant to be a pop-up garden for 6 weeks, but it's been here now 12 years, and it's the it's the best roof garden in the country. There isn't a roof garden in Great Britain that has over 250 species of British wildflowers growing on the roof, as well as over 17 native trees on the roof. Yes, there is plants from around the world, North American prairie plants and so on, for late flowering for the bees and the butterflies. And from this garden now, I've got over 15 people back to work. So 15 people that were once living on the streets who are addicts of some nature are now working in horticulture. So I lose all my best gardeners. I train them and I lose them. And that's the history of Grounded.
I think that might just be one of the most inspiring stories we've heard so far this relay. What a perfect example of a project supporting people, climate and nature, which is of course what Running Out of Time is all about. If you'd like to find out more about any of the guests or organisations featured in today's episode, please do check out the show notes. Today is Show Your Stripes Day, and we're off to a very special event to mark this, so listen out for the next podcast episode, which is out tomorrow morning. The Carbon Copy podcast is presented by me, Isabel Sparrow. The producer and editor is Bradley Ingham. Thanks for listening. Until next time.